appears to be very nascent. I'll tell you why I'm asking that. Because if you are going to deploy smart metering in a lot of ways, you have to load it with information. Merely doing billing with a low-cost meter reader ain't going to give you any return for that meter. And this CEA discussed it many, many years, even 2012, when Mr. Bajaj was the chair, this was a big discussion. So the question is to load up with more intelligent information so that you can do effective management. And time of use, I thought, was one of them, but I will ask first the three regulators and then we'll open it.
Let's start. So I was telling him, no, this Sri Lanka is successful because they are recovering the entire cost.
Right.
The tariff is 28 rupees, which we cannot think of in India.
So it's 28 Sri Lankan rupees.
Ah.
So
How
when
much
you
is
make,
it?
income's about 10.
Not bad, not bad at all.
No, 10 or 11. 11.
Okay,
11.
Not bad at all. I mean, relatively they are on a path to something, right? Yes, it is a little more expensive than what you would have.
expensive.
Right.
Here we can't think of that. So see, the reason is, for example, if you take Telangana and Andhra, which we separated 5 years back, the same number of subcategories are 90, more than 90. That means, to give you an example, the CM decides for the barbers, the tariff should not be more than 2 rupees. That's all. That letter comes. So what is the role of regulator there?
Okay, but that is a separate. We can't have that debate here. The question is time of use.
Same thing with 100 units fellow or 200 units fellow. No, it is there in Delhi also. So you can't charge more than this. Okay. So time of use is not applicable. First thing is. Second thing is, this is the political decision. They can ask you to get out from here also. These already cases are there. The regulator was asked to resign also. Okay. So regulators, they have limited power. Okay. So not everybody is not like Mr. Sen. Of course, he has also not done much, but he has kept his tracks.
Okay, I'm going to move to the next one.
So,
yeah. Let's move on to the next one. I'll tell you why, because I'll come back to your point.
Yeah.
Bozoko, I'm going to put you on the spot. Your study, your study every year shows the very large difference between peak, winter peak, summer peak, which itself is causing a part of problem for Delhi. Right? If you look at your big deviation, the return on asset has got to be very poor when you keep on building capexes for such large deviations. How do you manage? I mean, what would you say to Delhi to be able to get a better return on asset? Because they're doing everything that they can. They're actually much better than the rest of the country. So what would you say to them?
Yeah, see, there's no second thought that, see, the wholesale prices are in any case reflective of the demand supply. So that you see in the power exchange also, the prices between night hours and during the morning peak, there is a difference. The same thing has to be extended to retail. There's no doubt on that. It's just a question of how we implement, and I have personally very little experience on the retail side. I won't be competent because we deal mainly with the wholesale energy markets, but it's there. Like till it extends to the retail tariff, you won't get that much benefit. That's for sure. But I had some other issues related. See, the topic that is here, we are talking about energy transition, rooftop solar, grid codes. So I just had a couple of points on the energy transition, which would mean moving certain applications from other forms of energy to electricity. And for India, I would like to sound a note of caution when we do that. Already today, the ramp what you are talking about in winters, the demand is going up by 55 gigawatt from night 4 o'clock to morning 8 o'clock. That's something, this year it's been unusual, So that's because the night load, so the solar irrigation pumps, what he mentioned, that would lead to a serious problem that the night load would go down further. This year we never expected it would go below 100 gigawatt. It used to be around 120 gigawatt, but this is the first winter where the night load went to below 100 gigawatt, right? So that's one concern, when we are moving from other forms of energy. Solar irrigation pump is just one example. The other example which people often quote is moving some applications like cooking from gas or LPG to electricity. I would say that would be a big disaster for a country like India, because even if you look at all the city gas distribution, right? If you have a look at their profile of gas consumption, all the whole day's gas quota is exhausted in just 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the evening. But that's the time people would cook. You can't tell them that you cook in the middle of the night or in the daytime. So the entire gas, in fact, I was in northeastern region also, and there we have one gas power plant, Palatana. So that's operating, morning it's giving slight peaking. And there was a gentleman from ONGC just sitting next to me, and then I showed him the price curve. He asked, why do you back down during night hours? Our gas is surplus and all that, why don't you take? So I showed him the price curve of IEX. He says, okay. Then after half an hour, he comes back and says, hey, that our gas consumption is also following the same pattern. Okay. So when he says that I can't shut off whenever the morning, the consumers in Tripura, when they start drawing for cooking, that time Palatana also wants a higher output. And the gas pressures, they go for a toss. So that's one thing, when we talk about moving cooking from LPG or CNG to electricity, it will be, because the one is on account of solar irrigation, the night load would also go down further. And because of cooking also, the gap would go up. The 55 gigawatt might well shoot up for a country like India. And all this...
You have to answer the question. Are you a backer for time of use rates in this country?
Yeah, certainly. With all this...
With Morocco, no time of use?
Yeah, certainly. We are all for it. There has to be a signal to the ultimate retail consumer. And if we are talking about transactive energy and all that, so retail time of use, without that you can't move forward. So that's one thing. So all the studies, like even 2030, whatever studies we are doing, unfortunately we are assuming the same load shape. And when we're talking about energy transition and moving to other forms of energy, it's important that we know how will be our load shape. Because all the optimal capacity that we get out of all these studies, they would all go haywire if your load shape changes so drastically. So that's one thing to watch out for. From the grid codes I had, maybe I'll look at it.
Okay, coming to the West Bengal, as far as West Bengal, as far as West Bengal is concerned, we have, no, it is yes. Because West Bengal time of the day is introduced wherever there is a meter which can do that. Where it cannot be done, then you have to read a meter. That meter cost, as we are switching over to smart meter, it will be possible. And I'll tell you, we have a more flatter curve than the rest of the country. Because most of the industry, they are in cold storage, the rice mill, the steel industry, they generally operate during the off-peak hours. They have major draw. Though they draw sometimes, that's why, they have been also talking about the net metering with the time of the day adjustment. But the time of the day is the only solution as on today. Then those time of day can also be further supported through the connecting the batteries and other things. All those things can be done. And then you have to be driven by the cost of power. It should not be based on the specific time. It should be based on the power cost. When the power cost goes up, it will be like this. So they should draw based on the cost of power. Something can be done because the smart meter is coming. Everything can be done.
Do you feel in the jurisdiction where you now live, perhaps, that there is going to be a certain segment that will be forbidden because it will not recover the money of the cost recovery of the meter will not be there in that?
Look, when you talk about smart meter,
Everybody should.
and I try to first understand, we cannot roll out the smart meter across the length and breadth of the country in 1 year. It will require at least 5 years.
Let it be 5 more.
At least 5 years, I'm telling you.
The policy, are you saying, and this goes back to the product system, is there are a certain segment at the very bottom.
I am coming to that point only. I am coming to that point step by step. I'm telling. So let us really focus in the where I should do it first, then second, then third, then fourth. So I am not saying that you have to do smart metering everywhere, because if you see my document also, I am talking about using smart meter for damaging those people who are stealing the power. So you have to really go for installing smart meter, air bunch cable, then all those, I mean, your things in a way where there is a demand for this much more, I mean, paying. Just that don't go on a, I mean, just in a blanket way to do it.
There's no meter for agriculture. Forget about this part.
Here, the south of India's God is the only one to save the electricity.
No, West Bengal is 100%
There, south of India.
West Bengal is 100% because India is 100% because.
The north needs other form of reform.
West Bengal, only 5% is agriculture.
No, but 100% meter it is. No, 5% because. I'll just clarify here. Why it is 5%? Because the West Bengal requires water only for 2 months. But they require across the, I mean, state. Not that only in 5% spaces. Wholesale requires only for 2 months. Because the rest of the year, you get sufficient amount of rate.
You see, TOD tariff, I think Delhi felt it necessary and we have implemented almost for last 7-8 years. It's there in position. Starting with mostly industrial and commercial. And now I think it is up to 10 kilowatt TOD is applicable. For domestic consumer, it's optional. If he wants to go for it, because his meter will have to be changed. So we have given that option that if he wants to go for a TOD tariff, he can change his meter and go for a TOD tariff. But what we have seen is that actually TOD tariff is not helping our demand side. Because most of the peaking load is coming through domestic and not through industrial or commercial usage. It's a late evening or summer peak air conditioning load will suddenly come up at home. Night street lighting, everybody coming, all residential load will come up. Winter, geyser load will come up. So that peak hours of different months is linked to the how that behavior of domestic consumer. So TOD, if we really want it to be effective, it has to be linked with the domestic consumer. Unless, and for that, smart meter will be necessary. Now, Delhi had almost all the meters which are TOD compliant. But you have to program it individual meters. We are not able to program it from remote. That was the constraint. That even if at end of the year we study that, okay, last year's profile is this and I want to use it, or I want to have a dynamic tariff structure, it cannot be. Huh? That's what I'm asking. That's what I'm saying. I'm coming down to that. I'm saying that. You see. So, that's what I say. And if you really want a dynamic tariff, then none of the existing meters are adequate to do that. Okay. Every day, every hour, so when somebody said that it should be linked to cost of power purchase, if you are going to link it with that. So that is already existent. That is what I'm saying. So ultimately, three structures are existing for last 6-7 years. It's there.
So every residential has got a...
Residential, yes, but residential we have not given a must.
Oh, it's optional like that.
That's not it. Residential as a regulator to commercial and industrial and all non-domestic are on time of day. But residential has been given optional. That if he wants to move for it, he can take it. No one has exercised so far. You see, question is, we have gradually come down. It used to be 50 kilowatt, then we came down to 25 kilowatt, now we have come down to 10 kilowatt. So gradually we have been improving over a period of time. A time will come definitely when it will be implemented for everybody. That depends on who is at helm of the affairs. That will decide.
I think time of use is definitely required if you want to give people the choice of using electricity, cheap electricity when it's available and not using or not avoiding using when it's costly. So that's definitely required. Now, about the changing of slabs, I think it's practical not to change it every day because it's a very difficult thing to do. But because it's also very difficult for a person to plan the purchase of power. I think it's better to do season wise, which can be dynamically programmed from sitting in the distribution SCADA. One person can program all the meters if they're smart meters through communication, and that's easy to do. But one of the many other benefits of smart meters are accurate demand profile of transformer wise for a state, everything, and also then proper procurement of power. This is not happening just now. So, for example, Punjab purchased power for catering to their agriculture season, which lasts 3 months, and for 9 months that generating station, that capacity is idle. So it's a huge amount of wasted capacity. Effectively, even if it's 4 rupees for 3 months, if it comes to for the year, if you consider it for the year, it'll come to more than 3 times that. So it's effectively very high. So, but if they had that facility of seeing what time the peak happens, transformer-wise, so even the transformer capacity, and also we talked about batteries. Megawatt scale batteries are very important in cities which have no place for installing more cables. To see that if a peak in a transformer happens for 1 hour, then it'd be better to instead of laying a cable which would be idle for 23 hours, to put a battery which can cater for 1 hour, which is being done by BSES and Tatas. So these are good things. But time of use is definitely. Now, there was a question raised about policies are made, but they're not implemented, which is right. Now, point is policies made by the central government. We have a federal system. The states, is it legal? This came up in the Supreme Court, whether it's a law. It's not a law. Policy is not a law. Law is the Electricity Act 2003 and the regulations which have been made under the Act, subordinate law. But for a policy about non-compliance of RPO. That was what it came out to, that if the government of India has made a law, why isn't every state following it? Then it became a legal question whether the government can dictate to the states, because the power is in the concurrent list. They have their own jurisdiction. So now it's still not decided whether a policy is mandatory or not. So these are things I'm saying. These are things which should be considered. Yeah.
I'm saying that the value of TOU has not been realized
Right.
by the state.
No, so it is not realized. No, it's not. Yeah, right. Right. So now that's where consumer engagement comes in. I know the Boulder project, which installed these smart meters in US, also it didn't work because there was no consumer engagement. So it's the same sort of people. It's human psychology is to be considered. Whenever anybody they want to bring about a big change in the country, the consumers must be made aware of the benefits, how it's going to benefit them. Even give examples of whether their power consumption can come down or reduce, or the bill come down because of this, and how it's going to benefit the nation as a whole. But if you do something without telling them the logic, people are going to be a little apprehensive. I mean, they're going to be suspecting maybe there's something more to increase my tariff, that's all. So these are things, consumer engagement is very important, which is not happening in many countries, not only India. I know it doesn't happen in many other countries. UK also didn't happen, the smart meter program rollout, which they decided to complete by 2020. They were not able to complete it. And many people are still apprehensive of this. Now, consumer engagement, you're dealing with human beings. And I think everybody should be treated with respect that they have a mind, which can understand. So these are things which I think will make things work.
Bring a consumer perspective to what we focus.
No, exactly. It's a very rare occasion to have 3 former regulators in one place. And so, no, in fact, when in Delhi, when the privatization happened, so both BSES and Tata Power, they faced the same question that the consumers thought, now the private players have come, so they're going to. Yeah. So in Delhi, consumers thought that the private players are now going to make money out of them. So similar kind of thing what just Mr. Batra mentioned, when you have TOU, so they will think, okay, now they're trying to monitor my usage. The smart meters, that's the kind of thing consumers thinking, that now the utility is trying to monitor what am I doing, what time I am doing. So this kind of a privacy issues are, I mean, it's not really true, but people. So this kind of thing. And so another thing same thing I was thinking as a consumer, I mean, is TOU easily implementable? Or do you think of something a DR equivalent kind of thing? So is that would be, I mean.
Give the mic to the man next door, let him answer. He said in lieu of TOU, can you do something else?
No, first of all, I think I am all for TOU, except that everybody has made such a media hype of how cheap power is available off the shelf that the consumer is misguided. Now, whose responsibility is it to guide the consumer appropriately? There is no cheap power available off the shelf. No, I'm just saying. This is some concept which it is very good for power ministers and everybody to speak of. Power is available at 50 paise. Why is the consumer getting it 7 rupees? It makes very eminent sense for a consumer, because then the consumer says this politician speaks rightly, some of the regulators speak rightly, and all these profit mongering is happening at the distribution end. Or inefficient, whatever. The fact of the matter, which I think was touched upon in 2004-2005, when BSES and Tata Power came in, the mandate of the government was, mind you, we want 100% PPAs for our citizens. There should be no power outage. So Delhi went under the force of the signed PPAs. Now suddenly you can't get out of the PPA. So what happens is, today PPAs exist for 4,500 megawatts of base power. Base power. Winter load in Delhi comes down to 1,200 megawatts. We talked of 100. No. Signed 8. So what happens? At the end of the day, Commonwealth Games में बढ़ाया, उसके बाद NTPC ने जो बढ़ाया, तो 8,000. We took the matter to the CERC and the Supreme Court also, that look, I am saddled with the PPAs where I cannot pay. I do not consume so much of power. Please allow me to get out of the PPAs. No way. I can't get out of PPAs. The consumer doesn't know that. So he knows that you are giving me power at 8 rupees. This is bloody profiteering at its worst. Then you say, the power minister goes and says power is available at 50 paise, 1 rupee, 50 paise. I don't know why these distribution companies are asking for. Because you see, your entire credibility is at stake. Barjinder Singh ji is ex-member of DRC. His earlier chairman was Shri Barjinder Singh ji. Now, in one of those forums, I told Mr. Barjinder Singh that if you make one statement, 5 million consumers of BSES and Tata will look to you only. Now, I may shout from the top of the rooftops that this statement is incorrect, but nobody is going to believe that. So the question of credibility is very high. When you say time of use, again I say, what is the cost of power? Nobody is factoring that into. Khan raised this issue. You price power correctly, everybody will shift to time of use. But if you price power inappropriately, for various compulsions, I am not getting into why it has been done, but if the power is not on a cost to serve basis, why should anybody shift to time of use? I have a 10 kilowatt load in my house. I use rarely, no longer now. I used to use 6, maybe 7. Earlier when the children were there, I was using maybe 8 kilowatts, still not 10 kilowatt. Now I use one AC. The first thing that was there was fixed expenses was raised inordinately. So what did I do? I brought down the fixed contract demand. then when I shifted to Greater Noida, I brought down the contract demand to 1. Then the Chief Minister was very kind. He said 200 units free. So for the last 12 months, I have not paid a single paisa as a bill because everything is paid by Delhi government. So the fact of the matter is, time of use is absolutely appropriate if you price power correctly, and then you bring in this concept of getting out of the PPAs. Please give me the flexibility of buying power in short term, in medium term. Yeah, but now I have, from regulation, you must go for open tendering, you must do this, you must do this. Thank you very much. You run the business. It doesn't work. You are wanting to run it as a commercial enterprise, and then you are putting every hurdle in the way to run it as a commercial enterprise. It will not happen. I'm just telling you one more example of how wishful thinking happens. The Ministry of Power has now come out and stated that by 2023, all the meters should be changed to smart meters. Rahul, both the Rahuls are well aware of it. A prepaid smart meter, very beautiful concept. And they've given her the gradation also. Today, just for your information, there are 240 million consumers in India, across the breadth of India. Today, the penetration of smart meters is 12 lakh. 120, 1.2 million. So, 240, 1.2, 0.5% se bhi kam hai. Now, they say that by 2020, you should be able to achieve something, then 30% in 2021, then another 30% in 2022, then another 40% in 2023. Beautiful. On paper, it looks superb. We could not put up. This is all ridiculous for the simple reason that when you put a meter, you've got to put an MDM in place, you've got to put a head-end system in place, you have to integrate everything. We had such severe problems in BSES when we could not change even 6 lakh meters in a space of 6 years. So these are all theoretical. Look at what is practical and then find a way to make that work. Just talking in the air will not help.
I'm going to reserve that. How to do it later. Tell me your Sri Lanka story. How did you make it work?
I think it's a very interesting discussion. Perhaps I can contribute a bit for the policymakers here. One thing is, in Sri Lanka, we went to digital meters only 3 years ago. By that time, 99% of the country was electrified. So in our system, even today, more than 99% of the meters are electromechanical. But we have the best losses managed. We are in the 9.8% with generation, transmission, distribution all together. Whereas only distribution, when I was managing a utility, it was 4.75. We did all these things without a normal digital meter. Leave out the smart meter. Without a normal digital meter, we manage all these things. So that we have to go for technology, it is true. But you have to see how we should go for the technology with a roadmap. Because otherwise, now what you said, 240 million customers convert into smart meters, $24 billion cost. Because each meter cost with the meter data management and the head and the communication, $100. Approximately $100. It's $24 billion investment that you require to convert smart meters normal meters in India to smart meters. So what return that you are going to get out of that? If your losses are 30%, 40%, perhaps you will get a good return. But in Sri Lanka, because our losses are very low stage, we cannot get that much of return. So I did a small calculation to see how the effectivity of this smart metering. So the return for me, the return from smart meters are coming from one, saving of the meter reader cost. Second, saving from the disconnection contractors cost. Third, the revenue generation will be faster. Fourth is the distribution loss reduction. When you quantify and put all these things, the project that I am handling now, 50,000 smart meters in Colombo, what I noticed was the cost for smart metering per meter per month is 300 Sri Lankan rupees per meter per month for a 10-year business model. I'm recovering 200 rupees per meter per month. So my cost will be 100, but that is also substantial, even if you leave apart the return. So I think we can do a model to see what best returns that you get. Because if the losses are high, definitely your returns are higher. Then the payback periods are less. But having said that, it is not necessary to have smart meters to manage a distribution utility better. We showed it by example, meeting 4.75 losses without a single smart meter in the system. We can do that. So that is one story. And also I was hearing that you do smart metering for selected customers. We debated that. If you do the smart metering for selected customers, perhaps the larger customers, and here one person, there other person, there other person, that business model is not going to work. We have done a lot of research and brainstorming on particularly on that. Because what will happen is the savings that you are going to get from the meter reader, you won't get that because one person is smart and next door is not smart. Other door is not smart. So anyway, meter reader has to go. Anyway, disconnection contractor has to go. Anyway, losses cannot be managed because if you are smart, are converting to smart only this guy and maybe 5 kilometers away another guy. Then you cannot manage the transformer loss reduction, transformer-wise loss reduction. Nothing can be done. So we studied this in detail and we decided as a policy, if you are going for smart metering, we go for one locality. So I am going for a one chief engineer area, all the people will be smart. Despite whether they use 50 kilowatt hours or 1000 kilowatt hours or bulk supply or not, that particular entire area is smart so that I can manage the area better, I can meet the regulatory requirements, I can do the loss calculations, I can do the revenue collection, everything can be done when you complete that. So that way I prepared a roadmap for smart metering. We are going to go about only 800,000 in the next foreseeable future because it's costly affair. It's difficult for us to manage. So that is about smart meters. And one question that I can ask from Lenkya, why India is not thinking of their energy mix liquid natural gas?
Expensive.
No. It is not expensive. It is the cheapest available resource in the world now.
No, so we've studied it. The spot prices are temporarily low.
Not temporarily. It's 4 in the Asian market. Their prediction is to go for 2.5.
Yeah, 2.5.
Yeah.
By the time you regasify and have the layers added in, it's not less than 6 delivered to the power plant.
Power plant you can deliver at 5 US cents. So that's pretty good.
$5 an MMBTU.
No. The delivery cost will be 2.
Okay, I'm doing in dollar per MMBTU.
Okay.
Otherwise, you can do in cents per kilowatt hour.
Yeah, we will do it MMBTU. So you can buy at, for instance, say 3, and then the regasification FSRU cost plus the piping line cost is 2.
Yeah.
It's 2. Then 3 plus 2, 5.
Plus taxation and other.
Yeah, taxation is internal, no? Anyway.
The last round we did the
Yeah.
energy part.
Yeah. Okay, right.
The question is, you are right. You're absolutely right. So I have a slight follow-up on that. Because you're going franchise by franchise and you're doing the whole thing in converting, if you were to take away the rest of this loss reduction business because you've already achieved it without smart meters anyway, are you seeing value in managing the grid or the medium voltage grid or the LT portion of the grid thanks to smart meters? Is there that value release, or you feel that value release through the head of the operator is anyway there? You don't need all these.
No, actually it is like this. When we say 9.8% of generation, transmission, distribution losses, that is including all the big bulk supplies. We have a small subsidiary company within Sri Lanka. It takes a bulk supply from us. When you leave out all these things and if you really look at only the LT, it is 14%. So there is room for reduction to at least 12 or...
Power quality, do you see?
Yeah, power quality, reliability, and various other tools are there. Even the loss reduction still we can do.
Quantify just that sliver, because there was a big debate once between Tata and BSES on this. That's why, without mentioning names and bringing it. Okay. If that sliver would be how much approximately? Just the operational excellence part, if you can look at it.
That is the losses plus the reliability, reliability and the power quality.
And the fact that you know what is happening at every node.
Yes.
Even power factor.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, the biggest return that you get from the loss reduction. Loss reduction and the advancement of the revenue collection, because you can disconnect. Almost immediately you can disconnect. Non-payment disconnection is automatic. So that way, I was assuming, we did the calculation, we were assuming that the revenue collection will be advanced by 2 weeks. That's an enormous amount of return from the bank interest that we can calculate. And also the reliability, because in reliability terms, we know exactly which and which house is not having.
Monetization value you can.
We have monetized, not the reliability, but we have monetized the meter readers cost, disconnection cost, and the loss reduction. Yeah. Yeah.
Because for those who have decided to give up on, like Brazil and may not be relevant.
I can tell you.
Very similar to your organization.
Yeah.
We know who the crooks are. I don't need a smart meter to go find the big.
No, I can tell you this one.
Sao Paulo is now being looked after by NL.
Right.
You're aware of that? NL went through similar transformation as happened in Delhi. They knew where the crooks were, but yet to be able to monitor the energy flows,
Correct.
Right. You required those, at least the distribution and feeder side metering you required fully.
There's a second story to that. They haven't done that.
I can quantify that.
But the reason I ask this is, if there is value to the operational part of a smart meter, if that is so, then that needs to be brought out clearly in a paper.
Yeah.
But in most of the cases, everybody talks about only catching the crook.
No, unfortunately, the people don't. That's why I said, look, once you do smart metering, one of the best things that's going to happen is that your power usage is going to come down at least by 1 to 1.5%. That is a huge saving. Because in the case of Delhi, we were using 224 million MUs. 1% is a phenomenal amount of saving. And if one can moderate the load on that basis,
Forget a better load share.
yeah, forget whatever is the gains I get out of AT&C reduction. On the operational side itself, Khan Saab mentioned about transformer unloading, unbalanced loading in West Bengal, which is a fact across all distribution utilities. The government of India has again come out with a very grandiose scam. 100% feeder and distribution transformer metering by 2020, 21. In 1 year time, everything will be done. Beautiful. कौन लिखता है मुझे नहीं मालूम.
Okay. Yeah, if I quantify that, now I told it before, the cost is 300 Sri Lankan rupees.
If you can write down maybe in an email, that needs to be shared with the Global Smart Grid Forum for countries contemplating this debate. And then the question is, this debate happens everywhere. Now, NL is a slightly different story, but it might not be fair to somebody who works for NL. They want to push their meters.
But Delhi situation is very, very much alive. We've saved so much because of these.
Which is nice to hear, right? So if the rest of the labor component and the consumption component, all that is against you in ROI. But if there is that sliver just by itself for operational, you go time infusion smart meter, it needs to be brought out as a showcase. Which in your case you seem to have done it. Because everybody says, oh yeah, the rich countries consume more, therefore labor costs are high, and I agree with you. The reason why we went to a smart meter was to fire all the meters. But that is not the value stream for the lower end, right? Where the labor wage cannot be there. So if you can...
Actually, we got the actual cost of the meter readers, actual cost of the labor, actual cost of the disconnection contractors, actual revenue collection, all these things we took the actuals. And the return was, I said, 200 rupees per meter per month. So out of which, if you leave out the non-technical part out, so for the other services that you were mentioning, maybe at least 150 Sri Lankan rupees per meter per day. Okay. I can share that. No, this is monthly, per month, per meter.
But at least showing a value release, which many people don't even want to acknowledge it comes, right? Okay, very quickly, Rahul, before I get to Martin here, because I have a separate question. Are you for TOU or are you not? That is a fundamental question. Forget all the arguments.
Retail?
Retail.
So, like any good academic, I'll spin this first. We got to start also with the wholesale. And I'll be very blunt. Do you disagree with the
Okay.
yeah. So first is, these are not mutually exclusive. And we have to get the wholesale right, because that is where a lot of the issue is. 80% of your discom cost is on procurement. You've got these static PPAs that are locked into. So you need that. Yeah. I mean, Gopal's story I know well, but even broadly across all the states, that is one side of the coin. Then the second side of the coin is, I mean, I've looked at cost-benefit analysis around the world for 2 decades of smart meters. Italy's NL case was driven by a meter change that was anyways coming. 38 to 45% of their use case was entirely because we anyways need to change the damn meters. Their 200 euros was their cost of the 32 million rollout in Italy, which I've seen several times. The Indian TOU is already available optionally in many states, mandatory above certain sizes and thresholds. It is not going to solve the problem if you make it universal, because a lot of folks either use so little or they are time insensitive, meaning they can't shift it as much. So we should be doing it, not because it will solve the problems, but it's going to be part and parcel of the other changes that then incentivize how your load shape is going to look like. Small example, solar pumps. A huge chunk of Indian time shifting is not due to a price signal, it's a control signal. How you get time shifting is either you do it on a control plane or a price plane and let the end user sort of participate or decide. And a big chunk in all countries, like in the West, most places said, I don't want to deal with it, and most consumers don't give me enough value. That's their choice. I will go in where you have a pool pump, where you have certain types of loads, which could be fast chargers or whatever. Apartment complexes, there's niches of India that are big enough worth doing, and you cannot do those without actually making it available to all. So let's bite the bullet, be done with it, but not have any false expectations that this is going to get you to a new magical Goldilocks sort of equilibrium. So I'm the, I spent months of my life changing the government law, which first mandated every consumer over 500 units and 200 units must have mandatory smart meters. And I said, no, don't do that. And then it took months of effort, evidence, saying that this is the histogram, this is the number of consumers. You were kind enough to share your discom data. And then I took it, anonymized it, and took multiple discoms and said, look, you can't get, like you said, the accounting right. You can't get your comm story to be right. Don't do it that way. So this, I think, I'm going to now just elevate this to the larger thing is, we cannot look for band-aids. We cannot look for stopgap. We need a systematic, credible plan that people are willing to buy into. Then if you don't succeed, then we know what the instruments are needed. But if you just say that this is what thou shall do X, and that person really doesn't want to do X, or it's not in their incentives to do X, or they're not ready to do X, it will fail, and then all you're going to do is have, one more round 2, round 3, V4, V5, sort of happening towards this.
I second the view that it's not an isolated initiative, but when I look at the example about batteries and solar in particular, one of our large customers is Sempra, San Diego Gas and Electric. In Sempra, it is cheaper for the consumer to produce power themselves. Solar panels have come down to that price. Then we try to play around with feed-in tariffs, make it less attractive. And they said, we don't longer participate in some kind of demand response schemes. We just heat the pool ourselves. And we put a battery in the basement with the result that consumer produces 70% of their own power. So then it becomes exactly that backup case. In that context, if we have smart meter, what's our role? We can either say, okay, I'm going to end this death spiral, as you mentioned in your previous presentation in the session, or we can say we redefine our role. And redefining our role, becoming a DSO, that we treat the consumer not as the enemy or a meter. When I started working for RW, we didn't have consumers. We only had meters. We supplied power to meters. And that guy better paid or we turned him off. So now if you treat them as a partner, this kind of model, I think also the incentive of the consumer is better. Because they say, okay, maybe I take the meter from Reliance, or I take the meter from, or the storage for myself because I have some extra savings and I don't want to invest it in the stock market because it seems quite frothy. So by having that then and treating this as a Uber-like platform business where we keep the grid stable, because I don't believe that just letting it all go haywire with renewables, India is an island in the end. We must have that ability as a country to control our load and have flexibility to control for grid stability.
Nokia guy, you got an interest to sell. You got an interest in keeping the system at least reasonably with an ROI for customers. You've also got Asia Pacific under your command, right? If you were to draw that line across Asia Pacific, where this man also belongs, what would you say to rest of, forget India, there goes right. Okay, you now come to the rest of the world and say, where would you see it as, or as, for countries that cannot be on the same, price parity, whatever you want to call it, where would you see or are seeing these things being implemented even though they are as poor or as rich as India? Because he had a good set of comments to address to India, right? What do you see that pattern, let's say in ASEAN, Vietnam, Thailand, where do you see it?
Obviously, you've got the low-end consumers, like in Thailand, 8 million out of 24 million don't pay. Okay. So putting smart meter to reduce losses is not the point. They don't pay anyway. But so they,
you say that it also is prevalent in the rest of the ASEAN nations for the same reason. Then the two are, it concurs.
Yeah,
right?
because even Philippines is moving forward, Thailand is moving forward. Indonesia already has a quite successful prepayment system. I think you had that ATM billing system that was quite successful. So when I look at it's more, I think politicians tend to simplify things. Politicians think, like in Germany, you can put solar anywhere you want. And they think that under Germany there's a big copper plate and it's like Lego. You plug the solar in and then it connects to the grid. That's what politicians think. But when you...
So you agree with all their things that, tough sell.
Yeah, and linked to the consumer, the...
One point, if I may. Yeah. The point is that... No, the economics of this is very, very clear. The smart metering economics is very, very clear. If in a year I am getting power for more than 1 hour, then my incremental cost is the cost that I will incur towards paying the power producer for power that is not utilized. But if that power gets to be utilized, I will get a differential tariff, which is higher. So the ROI is itself built into this. The more and more I have smart meters and the more and more I can control network outage, the better it is for me because I earn out of that. Forget... The consumer part of it. Yes. Now, the second part is the consumer part of it, which Rahul is very... But in the consumer, there are low-hanging fruits everywhere. 80% of power is used by only high-end consumers. Give them time of use metering. Forget about the 20%. You can always do it when conditions are better.
Go in a phase, don't go in a big bang. No, it's not a question. I mean, it's not even a big bang. It looks like even within the small bang, you got micro bangs that don't work. Because you have to do a franchise for it. You can't say feeder M1 will have only 30% coverage, feeder M2 will have 25% coverage. Then the operational value also doesn't get realized.
Yeah, you have to plan properly.
Correct.
Take all those variables
So,
into account
at
and then
least
do
on
it.
a per TS basis, if you say, okay, I'm going to cover all of, Howrah or Chaurangi or wherever, then that is one app. Because that seems to be the Sri Lankan lesson here, right? And this is what this has been debated everywhere. If you go, you have to go at least 100% of that local area, right? So that you have some operational benefit. Otherwise, it just doesn't work.
You see, I'll just add one point to it. We had set up as that you take area-wise, but all new connections, irrespective of the area, you will give smart meters. Any burnt out cases, you will change with smart meters. Don't change with ordinary meter and then replace it subsequently. Just to economize on the cost part of it.
I had a supplementary, but I'll reserve it. He wanted to talk about the Indonesian.
Yeah, I'd like to share our experience in Indonesia. Previously, we have a program to install 2 million smart meters under the supervision of USA. But after we calculate the return, we conclude that this cannot pay for the cost of installation of it. So the program currently stopped. But then there's a new development. We are in the process of opening up the rooftop installation, and we put mandatory for every household that put a rooftop to have a smart meter. And currently, the Association of Solar promotes 1 million rooftops in a year. So the Solar Association work for us, providing incentive to put the rooftop and plus smart meter. And why we consistently trying to do that is because we believe that once rooftop is allowed, then come the regulation of aggregators. And if aggregators is there with their own smart meter, then we will lose our customers. We believe that customers is our biggest asset now, 75 million customers in Indonesia. So therefore, PLN is taking an action to allow, another incentive is that the small, the bottom part of customers who is under subsidy of the government, we persuade the government that to replace subsidy with a rooftop installation, because it means around for 1 kilowatt peak we have 4 kilowatt hours a day.
It also then goes back to the same thing. Only rooftop customers are getting it. In an area, you're not covering the whole franchise. You're only covering only the rooftop. So for operational excellence, you're not going to get the benefit because of the sparsity of the
Yes. But then, of course, for our own installation, like substation, distribution transformers, we have to put the smart meter as well. But infrastructure is there because thanks to the rooftop customers.
No, for me actually, yes. So as a universal, no. The way I think of it is more on in terms of the marginal value, what you are going to get out of it. And the way I see it is whatever your load shape difference is, even if you target like 20% customers, you will have a flat load. So is there any value of then providing time of view to everyone when the load is flat? So if not, then why are we trying to... No, so whichever way you want, yeah. So whichever shape you want, whatever, yeah. So whatever is so flat means, there is no mismatch between supply and demand and you can plan everything the way you want. Then there is no need for doing that, right? So this whole 100% metering, smart metering and other thing, I've just not understood when we have not even been taking any decisions, intelligent decisions at feeder level data. We have been, I think, having discussions with various utilities, with the Ministry of Power and everyone, even at just feeder level, just try to understand what's the power quality happening, what are the outages and other thing, and there is just no data which is made available for taking any decision. When you talk to, we are trying to do some analysis for utilities, we don't even get any data on at a feeder level analysis to say where is the value, which feeder is the best feeder where they can deploy something like energy storage or other thing. There are things where we are talking about demand response, right? Again, with demand response, typically the most of the value comes from the top 5% of the time. So again, you don't need everyone responding every hour of the day. What you need is you need customers who have the flexibility during maybe 100 or maybe maximum 200 or 300 hours of the year where they can be flexible, and that too typically not more than 10% of your load you need that flexibility. So a lot of these things I think we are just getting distracted because I think somewhere we have this tendency where when we do a very large numbers we are going to see some ridiculously low prices and we want these meters at 900 rupees or 999 rupees, so we have to give a big number rather than saying that okay, even if the meter costs 10 times more, if you can deploy only 5% of those meters and get the same value, we need to start looking at from the system benefit level of it. And then obviously there is a lot of practical issues where it is important, where it is going to be so much effort for customer education. Even once you have meter like opt-in versus opt-out has such a huge behavioral difference in terms of what will happen. So there are a lot of those issues which are required. So we are not even doing things on the top 2%. Even when we talk about, so industry and commercial customers have TOU rate. Are these rational rates? When we do any analysis for any commercial industrial customer based on the TOU rates, they have no incentive to change anything what they are doing because those rates are not rational. And those rates don't incentivize any behavioral change or any, especially new investment from the customer. So just for sake of having some TOU tariff is not going to give us any result at all, and we are going to waste a lot of time in these discussions. And if we deploy then on the actual hardware and other thing without realizing that, instead of that, we need to focus on the right thing, get the right tariffs, see who are the customers who can.
Policy changes is the first precursor.
Yeah, and there again, I think from the regulator point, I think I know you have a lot of issues and lot of things, but when you're talking about right now, say in Maharashtra, we live in a township. Actually, as a residential customers, the way MSCDCL treats it, all the common loads is considered as a single residential customer. So we are actually paying 14 rupees per kilowatt hour as a total flat rate bill. So there are customers where actually crazy amounts are getting charged. So I don't think there is any reason why a regulator cannot have some rational tariff and then just explain to customers why that tariff is there. The problem is happening is we are not providing any additional benefit related to the power quality, reliability or other improvements, and then just pass on those costs to someone. So people obviously make noise, but still, if you see just commercial industrial customers, on an average, everyone in India is paying more than 8-9 rupees per kilowatt hour. So there, if you can rationalize, if you can have something where you can explain it to them, okay, some hours it is this tariff, I think customers won't be upset. They will be able to adopt it. And that's much easier to do rather than trying to say, how can we convince every residential user to start paying 20% more during some time? Because then no one is going to understand the overall economics and other thing, and we are going to waste too much time. Anyway, I may be wrong, but that's my...
Can I intervene just?
One very important question. There is a push towards prepaid. Okay. How do you practically do TOU in a prepaid world, other than very static?
Yeah, I mean, first let me come
Sure.
back to that one. We'll come back to that one. Yeah.
Sure.
First, I mean, you have been too generalistic in your approach.
Okay.
In West Bengal, most of the industry and commercial consumers are using TOU extensively. That's
Okay.
why the load is more or less a flat.
Okay.
The night load is very high there.
Okay.
So you don't just go for generalistic statement like this. I don't know.
So, okay,
who
so
we are
West
saying.
Bengal, I haven't seen the analysis, but I've seen it in Gujarat, Maharashtra. Yeah.
Calcutta and all has got much higher loads at night because
Calcutta is a different place.
Sure.
Calcutta loads are certainly fluctuating because it's residential. But